Welcome to Koala Gardens. I'm Katrina, and this video is brought to you by my alpha producers, Jeff Anderson, Rich in Alaska, Lynn and Sean. And a huge shout out of thanks to all of those who get behind me in so many ways. Check out the links in the description below. And if you would like to come here and see the actual real wild koalas, I do wild koala tours by appointment. Again, links in the description below. And I want to acknowledge the Widjabul Waible people of the Bundjalung Nation on whose land I am so proud to live, work and play. September is Save the Koala Month, so it's a really special time where those of us involved with koalas do as much as we can to bring as much awareness as possible out there. And this video is a premiere, which is really exciting because it means that you get the opportunity, if you're here as it's first going live, to watch it with me and others, and we get to chat in text YouTube chat. If you're not here watching it live, if you've just stumbled across it, doesn't matter. You can still watch it like any other YouTube video. I was really excited. I had a chat to Koala Dave, and if you don't know Koala Dave, make sure you check the links in the description below so that you can go and follow the great work he's doing. So I had a chat with Koala Dave and said, "You want to do something with me in September for Save the Koala Month?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Got any ideas?" And he said, "What about a Q&A? What about if we open it up and let people ask questions that we answer?" And I said, "I love that idea." So this is what you got. We put it out to social media. So many questions came in. It was really such a thrill to get so much response. And now here's Dave with me, and we're going to do our best to answer your questions. Welcome to the question time with Koala Dave and Katrina. I'm so excited to have Dave here with me. Welcome, Dave.
Oh, great to be with you again, Katrina. Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to our conversation ahead.
It's a really great way to end off Save the Koala September. And what's really nice is the day we're recording this is actually the Save the Koala Day. So that's kind of dovetailed in pretty nicely that we get together today and answer some amazing questions. We had a huge number of questions, and they cover such a range, don't they?
They really do. It was fascinating reading them. And Katrina, while I've got you, I just want to say, how busy you must have been. I've thoroughly enjoyed those 30 fact questions every day. I've learned a lot. And I was thinking, I was taking a small group of people for a bit of a wildlife tour the other day, and I used some of that information, and I just loved, loved the one about the leaf and eating it from the bottom upwards. And it just makes so much sense. But I'd never known that, and it just made me look a little bit better, having your information on board. So thank you, I'm grateful, and I certainly know the people that came on that little walk with me, I really enjoyed that information as well. So thank you so much for all the energy that must go into that. It's just wonderful.
There is a bit of energy that goes into all of them, yeah. But you know what?
Sure.
I learn things every time I do that. Every September I do 30 facts. But every year I try to dig up some new facts that I haven't talked about and go a bit deeper on ones that I have. And I learn every time too. So it makes it a lot of fun. So thanks for that feedback. I'm glad that you're able to use those.
For your energy.
So we better dive into these questions because
let's get started.
We've got all these answers to give, and of course this is going out as a premiere, so we're able to chat with people live as they're watching this video, and I bet there'll be more questions thrown in as people listen to us. Dave, I'm going to let you answer question number 1, and that question has come from Hamster, and the question is, how long do koalas live?
Yeah, it's a great question. and it's a really hard one to answer because you've got the difference, I guess, between koalas in captivity and koalas in the wild, and often there can be some differences between males and females too, because obviously the male koala can lead a pretty rugged life, as can the female, not denying that. But yeah, often we say that a male koala in the wild may live to 8 to 10 years on average. So you will get examples of a lot older than that too. And perhaps the females that kind of 10 to 12 years. And again, some examples of koalas much older than that as well. But they're often the exception. So, in my time rescuing, I've come across a couple of females that are 15 years of age, and I'm sure,
Lovely.
Katrina, you've seen some older than that. And I've seen males up to sort of 14 years, and we think they've had a really good innings at that, and they've done really well. And no doubt the females had a large number of joeys, one every year over 12, 13 years. So a great innings, and obviously the male side quite a few of those joeys as well. So I think that's there. I'm sure in captivity that their age is a lot higher, but it's not sort of my area that I know a lot about in captivity.
I think captivity is probably a little bit similar in that they do have some that live to really quite old ages, but we also hear about them losing, koalas quite young. So it kind of correlates a bit to the wild that while there are deaths of some young ones, others do make it through.
Yeah,
Thanks.
and I think it's fair to say, Katrina, too. We've chatted about this before, but the average age may be coming down. So we're seeing koalas today becoming sicker, more trauma, that sort of thing.
Yes, I know in this area we're not just seeing them sicker, but we're seeing them sicker younger, and we're losing a lot younger than we were sort of 8 to 10 years ago. So
Right.
that's very concerning because we lose the potential joeys, particularly of the females. Yeah. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Hamster, for that question.
Indeed, it is a good one because it's simple and complex at the same time.
It is.
The next question comes from Gisem, and she starts by saying, "Hi, Katrina and Dave. First of all, I'd like to thank you on behalf of myself and all humanity for the care and dedication you show koalas." Well, thank you for that beautiful comment and acknowledgement.
Thank you.
So, this question, and I'll have a go at answering this, even though this is a really great complex question. I see koalas in different countries around the world. For example, Japan, United States, UK, Europe. And are the koalas supervised and monitored by the Australian government or experts like you? Or are they completely managed under the responsibility of the authorities in those countries? I can guarantee you they do not come to somebody like me for any help and management, but I appreciate you feeling that might be the case. But my understanding is that once the koalas are over there and settled, the responsibility is of the country that has the koalas. But it's a rigorous process that any of those countries or zoos had to go through to get their very first koalas.
Yes.
And that's probably where the biggest part of the responsibility of our government has played a part is ensuring that things were set up. And I don't know a lot of the history about it, but when the zoos were first setting up in other countries, it would have taken them years to prepare and be ready to actually accept their first koalas. I'm absolutely certain that if there were ever any complaint against any of those zoos or countries, that our government would investigate that. But I don't know of any, particularly in recent history. I don't know of any. So I think that that while they appear to be managing the koalas well, it basically they are their
Yeah.
responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It,
that sounds a great answer, and I would agree with you, Katrina. I see them overseas. They love them, and I think that's the great thing, isn't it? That people love koalas all around the world. So
indeed.
to have them in a zoo setting, I'm not a fan of zoos overly, but they are a place that we can learn and get to view these beautiful creatures. So I think I think from what I can see as well, Katrina, they do it very well.
Yeah. Huge koala hero Sean Sack does some fantastic drawing of the koalas on my property. He spends a lot of time and effort getting every detail of the personality of the koala captured with each of the drawings he does. And anyone who has been following my channel for some time would quickly recognise that this one is Bullet. Sean has drawn 6 koala drawings to showcase this in this video. Thank you, Sean. All right, we've got 3 questions now that have come from 2 people who obviously got together, had a bit of a chat. What would we ask, Katrina and Dave?
Oh, good on them.
So, yeah, which is great. So these have come from Sean Sack and Rich in Alaska. And the first one I'm going to throw to you, Dave. Why does a koala sometimes come into a building?
Oh gosh, and yeah, gosh, and we see it on social media often, and they get so much love, don't they, Katrina? And I think, for me, I look and I think, gosh, there's a sad picture for me, because the koala, that's not its natural habitat. That's not where it wants to be. There's no food there for it. And don't forget, koalas live in trees. And here they are on the ground, very, very vulnerable to, humans, cars, all those sorts of things. So although they look cute, my thing is that they're probably looking for a safe place. They may have been chased out of their habitat by an alpha male, or a dog or something, and they found themselves in this really terrifying situation. And the media, of course, love it, but for me, I just think that poor koala is looking for somewhere safe, somewhere that they can call home. So I think that's why we see it, and of course, it grabs all the headlines. I guess any exposure is good exposure for our poor koalas. But I don't know that we always hear the full story of how that koala actually got to be there. Was there, I see it every day, building developments are going on everywhere, and they're just knocking down tree after tree after tree. Now they might leave one strip of trees, and, the poor old koala's got to fight to live in that tree, and eventually gets pushed out. And we see them in our suburban streets and in shopping centres, in car parks. I've even had a koala in the basement of an apartment building. How on earth it got there, I'll never know.
Yep. Really does make you wonder. Yeah.
Mm.
I totally agree. And we usually don't see anything beyond the koala walking into the building, so we don't kind of see that what happened, and we don't always hear what happened after. Did they call an organisation? Did the koala get checked out? So we don't always therefore know that there was a valid reason behind it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very true.
Yeah.
The next question from Sean and Rich is, when koalas climb a tree and then stop and look at something, what would they look at? And I love this question because I find this behaviour fascinating in koalas myself. And people who've watched some of my videos, they've observed me filming this happening, where I've come along, a koala's on the move, I just stop and film. And I think that if they're going up a big tree, they will very often stop part way up and just they're looking to see if there's anything to see.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and and so they're just making sure, okay, is everything all right? Because if you think about it, when a koala's coming along the ground and they're starting to climb, they can't see much. And it's one of those
Mm.
interesting things in my 30 facts where I talked about koalas not being predators or prey, right? And
Yes.
so koalas' eyes are facing forward like ours. So if they're going along and they're climbing, they can't see anything else. So they tend you'll see them. They tend to kind of almost look to the left, look to the right, look to the left again. And I'm sure they're smelling as well. So I'm sure that they're actually checking both directions. Can they smell anything untoward? Can they see
Yes.
anything? If they're actually on the move, they will often climb partway up a tree, do a bit of a check, stop, and then they tend to be doing a bit of a listen, right?
Mm.
Because you'll see them just kind of look a bit and then they just stop really still.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
down they go and they move again and they'll repeat this. So they are trying to be cautious about the fact that they're on the ground and
Yes.
not just go running headlong into something that that they're not expecting.
Yeah. That's a really, really good point, Katrina. I think we've mentioned it before. When koalas are on the ground, that's when they're the most vulnerable.
Yes.
That they're most vulnerable on the ground. So just critical, isn't it? I love that too, and it's such a lovely trait of theirs. But they do it for survival. That's
Mm.
a tactic that they've built up.
Yep. Yeah. Was that a dog jumping at your shoulder?
Yes, I've got visitors. um, Sam, I'm just doing a live interview.
Hi, Sam.
Yes, Sophie?
That was really funny. You were talking, and all of a sudden, behind you, this thing just.
Yeah, so I'm actually up in the hinterlands of the Sunshine Coast at the moment. It's just a bit of a family retreat.
Oh,
We've had quite a
beautiful.
busy time. So we've got lots of family here. It's just beautiful. But yeah, I've got all the surrounding dogs now barking because my son's dogs have arrived. So apologies for that. But I'm not just a koala lover. I'm an absolute animal lover as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, one of us had to be sitting inside with all of the
Mm.
equipment to record all of this. So Dave gets to be outside while I'm sitting inside in a much more controlled environment. So
Yeah.
don't worry.
Thank you,
I'm sure
Katrina.
everybody
I,
loved seeing that bit of a dog jump up and disappear.
Gorgeous dogs.
Yeah. Next question's for you, Dave. Is it possible to take koalas to the west coast, breed them in a facility with huge eucalyptus bush, and would the second generation survive and thrive in the bush there?
Yeah, gosh.
I love this question. This
Yes,
really hits some important points that we
yeah,
need people to understand about koalas. It's a
yeah,
great question.
absolutely. And perhaps you can help me on the answer too, Katrina, because in Australia, everyone will know how vast it is, how big it is, and Western Australia we love. Don't get us wrong, but it's like another country to us here on the east coast. So the west coast of
Mm.
Australia has completely different eucalyptus trees. That they koalas aren't native over there, so it's like introducing a brand new breed of animal to a completely different country, if you like, even though it's the same country. So
What
I
could
would
go
think
wrong?
everything. I think and you mentioned it, with your zoos around the world, and so you kind of have to think like that. The amount of generations that it would take, to establish food-eating trees and things would take years. I would imagine decades to
Mm.
get an environment that is self-sustaining for a new koala. So maybe not the next generation or the generation after that, but maybe the fourth or fifth generation might start to reproduce and be able to sustain a population. But it would need a forest of trees It would need,
Mm, mm.
big areas,
Yeah,
considering the social habits of koalas.
yeah.
So I
I
think that's
I agree.
the very short answer.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I do believe it has been tried before, in the sort of mid 1930s. But yeah, they've never thrived. They've never taken off, and
No,
I would think would need an awful lot of looking after and an awful lot of very skilled people and dedicated people to make it work.
I agree. It would take a huge amount of intervention, and therefore it would always be a small population in a
Mm,
restricted area. And I notice, and of course, I'm sure Sean and Rich are sitting watching this as a premiere, watching this with us. But I got the feeling when they said with huge eucalyptus bush that they were wondering if we could kind of change the eucalypt landscape of Western Australia to make it friendly for koalas, and
mm.
I would say no,
No, no,
because there are eucalypt forests in Western Australia that suit the Western Australia climate.
yes.
Like you said, it's almost like another country over there. So
Mm,
even though they could be working on the coastal regions, etc., try to kind of map the east coast and do that down the west coast, it is so different over there. I
yes.
did go to Western Australia as a child, and it is, yeah, it's not the same. And so then, like you say, decades, and it would not be huge bushlands where koalas would thrive, unfortunately. And I mean, they've got less water than we've got.
They do. They have their dry days are a lot greater than ours. And I
Yeah,
think the other thing is too, koalas would still have the same predators over there. I don't know if they have dingoes or foxes or all of those sorts of things, but there would still be their same, um, you know,
mm, mm.
things that they struggle with over here as well. So it's a great thought, but I think we need to do better probably on the side of the country. Um,
uh, that made me think of another thing too, which is that it would have to be the coastal strip, and once again
mm,
you'd be competing with humans for the prime real estate.
yes, yes,
It's
yes,
not like we could take them into um, the more eastern
inland.
parts of. I was going to say the more western parts because my brain's east coast, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
like we could take them more
Eastern.
inland because most of Western Australia is desert.
Yeah,
Like the
indeed.
inland
Gosh,
parts of it, yeah, but gorgeous desert. It's like anyway, it's
beautiful.
not, yeah, not
Yeah.
koala habitat. So yeah,
And, and for those who aren't local, I think it's a 5.5 hour plane flight, just to
something
perspective.
like that. It felt like forever
It's,
when I was a child. Yeah, and it's like a 3 to 4 day drive, isn't it? And that is
yes,
not for the faint of heart.
no,
That is driving the Australian outback, which is, when people say everything in Australia tries to kill you, you drive across the middle of Australia, and yes, that's that's not for the faint-hearted. So, yeah, I suppose you could do the coastal road and take about six
I
days or
think a lot
something
of
to get
people,
there. Yeah,
yeah, I think a lot of people do that. They go down and
yes,
then up, don't they? Not many
yeah,
people
yeah,
go
yeah,
across.
for sure. Another beautiful drawing by Sean Sack, and this one is Honeydew, the newest princess on the property. She was orphaned, raised at Friends of the Koala, and released here and lives at Koala Gardens now. I've got a question from Val, and Val is wondering about subadult males looking to breed, how they will find a mate, and whether they have to wait. And Val says until they may be 3. And so a 3-year-old male is a subadult.
Hmm.
Okay, so, but
Yes.
then that's what Val's kind of, although I think maybe Val feels that they're mature by 3. And Val is one of my best question askers, I must say. Val asks so many questions on
Good
my
on you,
YouTube
Val.
videos that that often turn into other videos that I make because they're such
Right.
great questions.
Yeah,
So
great.
males take around 4 years to hit maturity, but I would say that a lot of 4-year-old males are just coming into maturity even
Mm,
at that
mm,
age, depending on the experience they've had.
mhm,
And so a younger male that's, say, that 2.5 to 4 years old, I believe he might get a chance to mate because they're very much opportunists, the males,
mm.
if he finds a young female in it her first breeding season.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's, and so she's probably only around 4 kilos, and he might be 5.5, 5 or 5.5 kilos. So, he's a bit bigger, and so he looks like
Mm.
it's like a 14-year-old schoolgirl looking at a 16-year-old boy and thinking he's a man. But when those females start to mature, once they've had 2 or 3 joeys, they
Mm.
can be big, strong girls,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they are very choosy, and
Yeah.
and it is unlikely that
Mm.
they would be successful at all.
Mm.
So I think, however, they will make many attempts during that time, and that's how they begin to gain experience, but they're probably not successful until
Mm.
they're
Yeah.
4, and definitely 5 years. By 5 years old, if they've managed a mating, they have a, now they know what to do, and how to go
Yeah.
about it,
Mm.
and they're much
Mm.
more likely to be
Mm.
successful. Could be worth noting too that most females will be mated by more than one male during the
Mm.
breeding
Yeah.
season. So lots of males get opportunities, but not so much when they're little. Do you
Mm.
want to add anything to that, Dave?
No, I mean that's what I would observe as well, and I think the young male's trying to establish himself, in the habitat in the area, and they're probably likely looking for, I mean, the perhaps the older dominant males to get beyond, sort of their age is creeping up and those sorts of things. So they're looking for changes and opportunities as well. But it's very common, I think, for me to see a young male with two females in a tree, and they're all just sleeping quite happily. Like there's no, they're just part of that, fabric of that habitat. There's no, trying to get it on with the females, so to speak, or anything like that. So the
Right.
younger males tend to live in that colony quite comfortably, but they probably want to fly under the radar a little bit as well. So um, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So when you say young males, you mean like a sub-adult, a 3 to 4 year old
Sub-adult,
male?
yes. Yeah, a
Wow.
sub,
Okay,
and often
interesting.
I'll see the sub-adult perhaps on the edge of the habitat as
Yep,
well, where the females
yep,
are with the joeys, is what I'm trying to say.
yep,
Whereas the
yep.
dominant males will be kind of, doing the round, so to speak,
Sure.
and moving around. Mm,
Interesting.
mm.
That's great. One for you now. Oh, actually, this one is for us both. But I'm
Okay.
going to let you go first. So this comes from Maria, and Maria wants to know the happiest koala story that you remember.
Yeah, gosh, great question.
The
I think,
happiest one.
I think it's really hard, to answer actually, and it shouldn't be. But I think in recent times, I came across a very sick koala, and and we tried to rescue it, and it took 2 or 3 weeks before it was rescued, and it was really sad. So it's a sad story in some ways, but this sick female had a joey on board, and sadly the mother couldn't be saved, but the joey was saved, and every week the carer sends through photographs of this
Oh,
and it just like to me, the mum put everything into raising this beautiful
Yeah.
Joey, and
Yeah.
she
They
didn't
do.
make it. But so every week I get this update of this beautiful
That's
little uh,
beautiful.
Joey, and it just lights my day up, my week up. And it's I think those little stories, they're not massive, they're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
miracles or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the amount of effort that went into rescuing the mum, it's a whole team
Mm,
of people
mm,
that are involved. It's the whole
mm.
hospital involved. It's the carer
Yeah.
getting it, and it really
It's a
does bring
village.
a lot of joy to me and makes me happy that what we're doing and that I was a small part of it, a tiny part of it, and yet it just fills my heart with so much joy. So I think that's
I love
probably a
that.
simple example of what keeps us going when you can see, so many bad
Oh,
things.
for
Mm,
sure. For
mm,
sure.
mm. And you, Katrina?
Uh, so, anyone who's been watching my channel for some years will remember this happy moment. But for me, the one that jumped into my head was the day that I'm standing filming Bullet, and he climbs down out of this tree, and just has not seen me. Is the only thing I
Yeah,
can work out,
yeah.
and just walks right over to me and gets to about 2 feet away from me, and I'm just like filming, going, trying not to breathe, and I must have just moved a little bit or something, and he suddenly looked up at me, and just looked at me, and then he just did a big circle around to the other side of the tree before he climbed the tree. And that was just it
A
was just a
magical.
very magic,
Mm.
happy kind of moment of his behavior. It was quite hilarious.
That,
Yeah.
that that's lovely. And for most of your people watching will know that koalas don't have the best eyesight. So often at night time when we're trying to rescue a koala, if they're coming down the tree under the ground, if we stand really still, they'll walk right by us, and we can just slip a net over them if we need to catch them for whatever reason. So yeah, their eyesight aren't the best, but that's a remarkable. Would have been one.
Yeah.
Your heart would have been in your mouth.
Their eyesight is a whole different, whole different thing, because they actually have great eyesight, but not for seeing what you're talking about, right?
Mm,
But they
mm.
calculate and jump and leap through the
Oh,
treetops, and their
incredible.
eyesight is designed for something that does not work so well coming down a tree and being on the ground.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Well,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, and that's why they can be quite funny in their
yes.
in their behaviour, because yeah, their eyes are made for recognising and working at really different things too on the
For living in
ground.
trees. Mm,
Yeah, yeah, and it's
mm,
true. If you just stand really still, they
mm.
often can't find you. Yeah,
No,
yeah, and
no.
yet they can leap meters
Yeah,
up
good point.
in the top of the trees and
Yep,
grab a hold of a small
yep,
branch.
yep.
So, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's one of those funny things, like
conundrum.
when people say koalas aren't smart. You
Yeah,
know, it's
not
measuring it by human standards, and
mm,
so yeah.
mm.
Anyway, that takes us off on a whole tangent.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
these
Trees can't climb
how
trees.
different are those two happy memories, right?
Yeah,
I
very
love that.
different. Yeah, very different. I often talk about walking around the corner and coming face to face with a koala, and
Yeah,
my heart just about leaps out.
it does.
They're the daily happy memories. But yeah, to see a
Mhm.
Joey give it a chance for me just really fills my heart,
Yeah.
tenfold. You know.
Look, I could add a little happy memory on to that of just the other day. I had some people here from Germany for a tour, and we came up to Enya and Eden,
Yes.
and one of the people on the tour, he literally was getting goosebumps, and he was getting palpitations. He was so excited to
Mm.
see
Mm.
a wild koala mum with a joey, and what a
No.
happy memory that
Wow.
is for me
Yeah. Yeah.
to be able to
To,
share
to,
that with him.
to
So
facilitate
happy,
that.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
We could
I
just do
agree.
a whole thing of all of our happy memories, because there are many amongst all of
Yes.
the
Yeah.
hard things that we
Yeah.
deal with. So
Mm.
beautiful. All right. And this is another one from Maria for you, Dave. Do koalas always have one joey at a time, or can they have more than one? And and I love when people throw 2 or 3 questions into one. And can they adopt an orphan joey?
Gosh, I'm probably not the best qualified to answer, but it's I understand it's very very rare for a koala to have twins. There are documented cases of it. I've never seen it. I mean, that you talked about the joy of seeing a Joey, that the German visitor. I mean, for me, gosh, that would be a lifetime, ultimate.
True, true.
So I have not seen it, but normally just the one Joey. And as far as adopting, certainly not to my knowledge in the wild, but I have seen some really interesting situations in captivity where, and I remember a fellow a rescuer, koala person saying about they had a very elderly male koala, quite a gentleman apparently, and his vision had gone, and he was just going to be in captivity for a long time. And he often would carry the Joeys would often go to him, and actually, he would walk around with
Right.
them or care for them, which I thought was a beautiful story, which you would never
That's
see that in the
unusual.
wild.
No,
That's very,
no, I
very
don't. I
unusual.
can't imagine it in the
But
wild.
it's a
Yeah.
beautiful story. But yes, to my knowledge, no, it sadly once a Joey and a mum is split, the Joey will either survive or not. It won't be
Yeah.
picked up
No.
by another mother. I've even in the hospitals, I've never heard of them putting Joey with a different mother. Have you, Katrina? No.
That's it. They are really good examples that you've given. I have seen in captivity a Joey being put in with another female,
Mm.
and her accepting to let the Joey ride on her, and her sort of cuddling it, but she wasn't producing milk.
No.
So it all I've ever known in captivity is having the occasional female with a temperament that would allow them to
Yes.
be like an assistant carer,
Mm.
which
Mm.
is very different
Yes.
to them
Raising.
accepting to nurse
No.
another another one, and if a female was producing milk, the koala milk is quite special because the koala the milk that's coming out of the teat is designed for the stage of growth that her Joey is at.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that way mum can still be feeding one and can give birth to a new pinky, and that pinky will latch onto the other teat, and that teat will produce colostrum and will change over to milk to match that Joey's stage of growth and needs. So
Which is remarkable in itself.
no, that's
like
another whole
let's,
koala fact. Yeah,
let's underline that one.
absolutely.
How
It
clever are they?
koala lactation is it's phenomenal. It's really quite astounding how it works. So yeah, short. Going back to a shorter answer, I don't know of any cases that have been documented of another. People have said that mums have adopted Joeys, but when you actually read the story closely, they've really become a companion carer, and a person is actually giving milk to that Joey. So it's it gives the impression of something a bit different, and not every female would. In fact, we've had trouble reuniting Joeys with mums
100%.
at times. So so them just accepting a Joey they don't know the smell of, and it's highly unlikely.
Yeah,
So,
no, and I think gosh, here we go down the rabbit hole. But again, kudos to the carers out there that take these on, because there is no other choice that we know of.
Correct.
Other option, I mean.
Correct. And there's another point that I would like to make, however, and this is not something I can back up with scientific fact, but it is something that I suspect from what I have seen and read and known. I suspect that it's reasonably common for two joeys to be born
Ah,
and to crawl up into the pouch, but not common for the both of them to survive.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. Mm.
I don't know how, like, I wouldn't say like it's really common, but
Mm.
I
You suspect it's more common than we
yeah,
appreciate. Mm.
because like people, females are not necessarily, when they ovulate, not necessarily just releasing one egg that was
Mm.
successfully
Mm.
fertilized.
Mm.
But yeah, but whether they all survive
Mm.
is another thing. So, and here we go again, another fantastic of the drawings by Sean, and this time we have Woody, who is actively climbing up along the almost horizontal branch of one of the large pink bloodwoods on the property that he particularly likes using. Now it's one for me. This one comes from Elaine Linz, and she asks me what I think about the creation of the Great National Koala Park in New South Wales, and will it go ahead? So this is a really great question, and it is really complex. The plans for this have been going on. Actually, I don't know how long. Years. This
Mm.
is, and these are things that are often also misunderstood. Is that things don't just happen like that. There's
No.
a lot of planning that goes into it. Recently, it became a big election promise, was
Right.
that it would go ahead and it would be completed, and there has recently been some action on it, and there are mixed reports on how effective those actions are going to be. So at the moment, I'm still sitting on the fence, and I want to watch what happens over the next 6 to 12 months. It's
Yes.
great that they have reduced the logging. They just haven't reduced the logging in all of the key koala habitat
Right.
areas. They have
Right.
they
Yeah.
have they have put a temporary moratorium on some of the
Mm.
logging, however. So things are moving, but yeah, I think it's
Well,
still a long way from
yeah.
being sorted.
Yeah. No, that's good to know, Katrina. Just for people who may not be aware, Katrina and I live in different states, and although
Yes.
we're actually only about 3 hours away from each other, we do live in different parts of the two different states, being New South Wales and Queensland, which is great because we do have some subtle differences with the way we're allowed to work and operate.
And some subtle differences in the exact habitat that our koalas live
Mm.
in.
Mm.
Even though we're not very far away from each other,
Mm.
there are differences in the koalas, in the habitats, and
Yeah.
then in the state governments and the councils that
Mm.
all are part of the ecosystems that we're living in and working within. So.
The great big jigsaw puzzle.
It is, it is. All right, now Luke Ronconi has been a solid follower for many, many years, and Luke has actually been here. So
Oh, wow.
Luke got to come and live in Australia for a little while before COVID and was studying and got to come here. And so he's got some questions. Firstly, I'm going to give you yours, Dave. So Luke says, Dave, during your time observing wild koalas, what's been the most surprising or unexpected behaviour that you've seen?
Gosh, yeah, well done, Luke, for being such a great supporter. Firstly, it, a couple of things come to mind quickly, and one's just a real throwaway thing, but I remember rescuing a koala one time in the middle of the night, and there was no habitat around. We found some local habitat, let this beautiful boy out, and he ran like I've never seen a koala run in my life. He ran like a dog, and how fast he was. And he didn't go up the nearest tree like I expected him to do. He just weaved his way through the trees, and he was just gone like a racehorse. And
Wow.
that was a bit of a learning for me, is just how fast koalas are. We see them in a ball, or outstretched or yawning or reaching out,
Yeah.
but these creatures can really travel if they need to. And so
Yeah.
you can imagine it being chased by a big alpha male, or that sort of thing. They can really take off. So that was the first surprise. But I think, and if you follow Katrina's channel, this will come as no surprise. But for me, being around koalas now for a long time, the characters, the personalities, how different each koala looks, to me, it's just remarkable. Like we often think koalas are all the same. They all just sit in the same position. Nothing could be further from the truth. And when I travel around a lot looking at different areas with koalas in, and I'm looking out for a particular koala or particular mum and a jolly, or Rambo, the big alpha male. I'm looking out for them in different areas, and I know their characters, and perhaps even the
Yeah.
way they're sitting, or where they, and stuff like that. So for me, it's been fascinating, and I'd call it like an unofficial longitudinal study of characters of koalas and their personalities. Since I've met Katrina, she explains that every day in her videos about the named koalas that come through her property, their characters, that sort of thing. Their ears are different, their noses are different, their faces are different, their fur is different, their colors are different. There's so much. Their personalities are different, and
Yeah.
I think just knowing that makes me even closer to their beauty, if you like, of who these koalas are. So they're all individuals.
I love that. I
Mm.
love that.
You'd agree, that, wouldn't you? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Oh,
you're
yeah.
built
And their
you're built.
postures. It's like
Mm.
sometimes I just know it's a particular koala just because of the way it's sitting. And
Yeah,
it's like, don't expect to see that one here, but that has to be
yeah,
whoever.
yeah.
And get around, get their face, and yep, it is that one. So, yeah, yep,
Mm.
I totally agree.
And I just sorry, and I'll finish really quick on it. But
Don't say sorry.
sometimes I'm in a completely different region, and I see a koala and say, "Oh, that looks like such and such." Like 10, 15 kilometers away. They've got similar faces, similar features, but I know it's not. But you know what I mean. So that's how familiar some of the koalas become to you.
Yeah.
Mm.
And sometimes that one that has a similar look shows some similar personality traits or postures or something
Mm.
like that.
Mm.
It can
Yeah,
be more than just the look. It can be, oh, geez, you'd swear that's
yeah,
so and
yes,
so.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. You
yeah,
know it.
yeah.
That's exactly right.
Interesting. Okay, so I was not going to say it, but I will say it. It's like I did a video that showed the three different girls that I've had on this property that look so similar. You really wonder if they must be related, and they've been on the property over a period of years, and they've had the same sort of fur colouring, a really similar look, the same big ears, and they've all preferred the same part of the property to each other, and it's just
Wow.
like
Yeah.
uncanny, and so yeah, it can be weird. All right, next question for you from Luke. So you get three questions, and then I get three
Oh, I was
questions.
going to say it's. Thank you, Luke.
Yep. What is one thing that most people don't know about wild koalas that you wish they did understand better?
Gosh, Luke,
Just one.
just one thing. I'm going to answer this, I guess, a little bit unusually. It is, for me, the one thing I wish people knew about was how important nature was. And the reason I say that is that that nature for us is worth protecting. It's where koalas live, sure, but so many other animals live there too. And I wish people wouldn't just say these animals are cute, they're cuddly, they're whatever. I wish they'd say, gosh, how beautiful is that koala living in its own habitat? You know, So if I was to answer that question, Luke, I think that's where I'd want to go. When I see a koala in the wild, as you know, my heart just pumps. Doesn't matter how often it pumps.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that is so beautiful. And if I could have one wish, it would be that everybody could experience that or appreciate how critical that is, not just for our beautiful koalas, all the other wildlife, but I think
Yeah.
as humanity in itself. So sorry to be a little bit grandiose on the answer, but that would be my wish every time, is that without trees, no me.
Never apologize for
Ah,
what you
I'm
feel.
just so emotional about it, Katrina,
Yeah.
because every time I
I
see a
agree
tree
though.
cut down, I'm absolutely distraught, and it can ruin my day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm not a negative person. Obviously, I always try and see the light. But when I get
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as I did driving here yesterday, and there was a whole blocks of habitat trees,
Yeah.
rows, and machines coming along, and I
Yeah.
just go, okay, guys, so where are all the creatures that live in there going? So yeah, Luke, that's my answer. I could talk about the social aspects of koalas that people often think about them being, quite, I guess, isolated creatures, but in fact, we see lots of social interactions with koalas when you get to know them. They do often come together in groups, but there are all those little things. But my biggest wish people would know would be that how critical habitat is and how critical nature
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. And because koalas are an umbrella species,
mm, mm,
like we just won't have koalas if we don't have the entire
mm,
ecosystem.
mm.
So it's always a bit of a quandary for me because I focus on the koala in what I present, but the koala on its own,
Mm.
it would just be like something in a cage if there wasn't the entire
Yeah.
ecosystem for them to be interacting with. And
Mm.
that's why I love being able to do tours as well as being able to show video, because there is something quite different about having your feet actually on the ground,
Mm.
moving through the landscape, smelling the smells, having the
Mm.
breeze in your hair, and then seeing that koala in the tree. That gives a more immersive sort of idea of what it means that a koala is an arboreal animal that
Yes.
lives
Yeah.
in these
Yeah.
forests. So, no,
Yeah.
that's
And,
beautiful.
yeah. Thank you.
All
Thanks, Luke.
right, number 3 for you from Luke. Do young suburban males actually get a chance to establish their own territory?
Um, and a great question.
Yeah.
I had to think long and hard about this actually, and
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
actually worked through a whole process. So I looked around where I live, I looked around the local koalas, and the answer is actually yes. It doesn't look like what we would imagine as being in a wooded area that's vast and they establish that here, but they do actually establish themselves. They do have their territory, if you like. So no different to any other koala. They may have to walk down a footpath, to go to the next park,
Mm-hmm.
which has,
Mm-hmm.
food trees in it. But they will do that, and they will have their circuit. And I don't have the science behind it, but often I think, well, I see a male koala, and I might not see him for another 2 or 3 weeks, but he will come back.
Yep.
He'll come
Yep.
back
Yep.
and
Yep.
do his circuit around again.
Yeah.
I don't know if he always goes the same way round. Don't have that ability to follow, him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they do. And, I know I lost a deer, alpha koala at the end of my street, down in some habitat down there. And, he's incredibly sick. And I'd known him for years,
Right.
I've been following him for about 5 or 6 years. He may have been there longer, but he wasn't obvious to me. So, and then, but when he left, it seemed very quiet. in the neighborhood, but within a year or so, new males had moved in,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
taken his space. May not be his trees, that's another story, another day, but they'd established their own
Yes.
trees. And they're there today, and I can testify to them bellowing at night time right
Mm-hmm,
now.
mm-hmm.
So Luke, my answer is I was going to say my first reaction was no, but yes, they do. They very much do. They've adapted.
That's
They've
great.
adapted to their situation, their environment, and I think of a creature like the koala that is so very old and changes so very slowly, but they've had to make those changes because they've had no choice.
Mm, mm, for
Yep.
sure.
Is my answer.
That's a great answer.
Mm.
And now another of the beautiful drawings for Save the Koala Month September by Sean. This time we've got Onyx and her gorgeous Joey at the time when Joey was just starting to emerge a little bit from the pouch. Wasn't back young yet, but certainly hanging out and having a bit of a breathe of the fresh air. All right, so
What are
now
your three?
Luke's got 3 questions for me. So, number one, what's been the biggest challenge in restoring koala habitat and what has been the most rewarding moment? So, for me, I would say the 2019 fires and then the 2017 and 2022 floods here. So,
Yeah.
we had catastrophic floods in 2022, but it's important when you think about those numbers. So it's like we had this big flood in 2017, and so even though this land doesn't go underwater, that means there was a lot of water moving through, and that has a big impact on all of the undergrowth.
Yes.
And then that drought of 2019 and the fires had a significant impact, and the property has never been the same again, both for the flora on the forest, and of course, as people who were following me back then know, that we lost Jordan after those fires and lost Racy, and they were two very high-ranking male and female, and the colony just collapsed, and it's taken a lot to get that colony back, and it one of the big problems with that is having a really good strong alpha male
Mm.
overseeing the area, because if there's not a good strong colony structure, it's very difficult to get a stable colony. So that's just making me think that's another whole video that I could go into depth to, but that's definitely been the biggest challenge, has been
Mm.
the changes that those extreme weather events have wrought on the property. And the most rewarding moment, I think, for me is every time I have a breeding female,
Yeah, gosh.
because that's that's probably the most critical sign
Mm.
of hope
Yes, I
for
agree.
things, is when you see a female successfully
Mm.
raising a joey, then that's the big reward.
Yeah, things are working. Things are working. And there's so
Yep.
many contributing factors to that, isn't there? Gosh. Yeah.
They
And
sure are. Yeah.
listening to you, Katrina, and just, they've thrown the kitchen sink at you, haven't they, really, over the last few years with the fires and the floods. I mean, gosh, Australia, it's incredible,
And the
isn't
world
it?
around. I mean, in the world around are just having all these extreme weather
Mm,
events that are
mm,
upsetting things incredibly.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question from Luke. Which trees and plants are the most important to plant today to ensure food and shelter for koalas? So this is another great question, and it actually we I will use a little bit of what we were just talking about before, and that is the importance of the entire ecosystem and the connectivity of everything. So we don't want to do monoculture plantings. Dave, did we just lose you?
Yes, I've got
Oh, you
I've
went
got a
sideways.
yeah, I've got a unknown caller coming in, so I just need to get rid of them. I don't know.
Now you're upside down. Yes! We'll let Dave deal with that. So we don't want to plant monoculture. So you would not go, oh, this is a primary food tree, so I'll just plant this because that'll make koalas happy. There's a whole host of reasons that's a really bad thing to do. But to me, the thing that is the real key is to plant diverse species that are endemic to that area. So if I wanted to plant food for koalas here, I would be doing a different planting strategy to what Dave would do, because Dave has different species that are endemic to the koala forest where he lives. So there's no one answer that this is what you plant to look after koalas. You actually need to get to know what belongs in that area, and it's so it's not just in this whole big area. For example, a lot of people know Bangalore koalas who do so, like, the amount of tree planting they've done is just
Fantastic.
phenomenal. Linda Sparrow is amazing. And so I live in the area where Bangalore koalas are, but Bangalore is part of what we call the old big scrub, and that's rainforest. So if you are wanting to plant for koalas over at Bangalore, you are actually planting big scrub, and you would never plant big scrub here on my property. That's only 30 kilometres away from Bangalore, or maybe 40,
Incredible.
right? But
Yeah.
so that's the critical thing. Is you need to know your primary food trees, but you need to know what was the endemic native bush on that particular piece of land,
Right.
because that's really what you want to reproduce again, because you need to attract all of the right birds and reptiles and insects that go
Yes.
with that ecosystem.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I know when Indy and I got to visit your beautiful place, we were so taken with the small birds, and there was just so many different creatures there, which is when it's all working together and in harmony, isn't it? So
Yeah.
a credit to you. Mm.
and
Am I back
and
up the right way
and
now?
to everyone who helps.
Yes, yes. Am I back up the right way now?
You are back up the right way now.
My
That-
apologies, everyone. I'm just on my phone, and unfortunately, I can't help when people try and call me.
yeah. And that's why I thought, once I knew that, okay, you were just working a problem out, it was I'd just keep talking
Yeah.
rather than me stop and cut that piece out of the recording in the edit.
Well done.
I just keep talking, and
Yeah.
and
Throw
hopefully
anything at us,
people were
too.
listening and not enjoying going around and around with Dave.
You're much more interesting. Thanks, Katrina.
Now, Luke's next question. I love the way Luke thought our three questions each out. So the third question for me follows on beautifully. How long do you think it takes for a degraded area to recover and become a stable koala habitat again? And so I had to think a lot about that. So within, if you do diverse plantings, you will have koalas using that within a few years. But that's not what Luke was asking. He asked, how long till it recovers and becomes stable koala habitat. And so
mm,
I would say refer to question 2 and make sure you've done that.
mm, mm,
And for it to become an actual rich ecosystem, which is going to be a stable habitat, decades.
mm,
And
mm,
so I my forest here is only 11 years old, and
mm,
the trees are getting quite tall. There's a beautiful canopy, but it it is still a very young forest. You can feel that when you're walking through it, that it
mm,
is still a very young forest. And so whilst koalas will start using those trees within a few years. Again, it comes back to have a stable habitat. You need well, you need diversity that's really settled in and is all working together. So you've got to get all those microbes and all of that fungi have got to be working through the root systems to get the soil
100%.
stable. All
Yeah,
of those things
yeah,
take absolute decades. Let alone if he said koala habitat, so I'm now stepping a little bit outside of this, but let alone if you want the entire ecosystem, your trees need hollows.
I
So
was going to
you've
say,
got 100 years.
yeah,
Yeah,
100 years there. And so you almost need things to be dying as well as being born, you know what I mean, as far as
correct,
seedlings and that
correct.
that whole stuff. And I know visiting your property in
Yes.
Cindy not so long ago, we talked about the nesting boxes, and
Yep.
that's why you'll see those, so many places, is that because we
Yep.
don't have the older trees in our forests like we used to.
Exactly. And
Mm,
so I know that I must have some hollows of some kind because I have quite a few kookaburra families that live on
mm,
the properties, right? And I do have possums, and I already had the
mm,
squirrel glider, and I have nesting, a lot of nesting boxes out, but those are. So again, those who know my property, those are mostly down through Bloodwood Gully and in the
mm,
rainforest remnant
mm, mm.
at the bottom. And so that's really good because there is some older structure. It's not ancient structure, but there is some older structure.
Mm, mm.
But and that's where it's a great question from Luke asking about that because yeah, things will come and things will be using it really quickly, but it takes a
Mm.
long time to be a
Yeah,
stable.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, one of the things, not to drag the question on too far, but, we often see what I would call grazing trees. So they're not trees that a koala will live in,
No,
but
no.
they'll pass on through and get some tucker and then move on. But so
Yeah.
end answer is maybe 100 years, but short answer for a koala perhaps 8, 10, 12, 14 years, you might have some trees that are starting to get some, decent size about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
For sure.
mm,
And that just made me think of my plantation area, which is
mm,
where we actually cut the trees all the time to feed the
mm,
koalas in hospital. But, um, lately, as in the last couple of months, I've had up to 4 koalas in that area on any single day. They love grazing through those smaller ones,
yeah,
and then they go sleep in other trees. So it's like, do you want to eat the same thing every day? No, and
no,
those
no,
grazing trees can be really important. And in a established forest, you've always got some of those young trees
yes,
that would still be
absolutely,
grazed through
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah.
yeah.
All right, now we're still on Luke because he really thought about this, and these are questions for both of us. So, because I've just done a bunch of answering, I'll throw it to you first, Dave. How much do dogs, cars, and bushfires affect koala populations today compared to deforestation and urbanisation?
Gosh, I'll try and answer this because they're actually absolutely related. The two things.
And we've
So
got
the
causation and correlation, don't we?
yes, yes, I'll take that as that is the response, isn't it? Because what we're seeing at the moment, probably like, and I can't give numbers, but to me right now, Luke, it feels like we're having more trauma on the roads than I've ever known before.
Yeah.
And talking to different groups and different rescuers, and even in different states, the amount of trauma that happened earlier this year than perhaps we're used to, and the numbers are staggering, and it's really, really frightening. And that's, often we will see, Luke, if there's a new development uh, in an area that was, previously koala habitat, we would expect to be rescuing, have a lot more hit by cars, a lot more dog attacks in that area for a couple of years. And then guess what? It'll go quiet again. So, we'll just go back to what we were originally having, perhaps. But the point being is that I think there is an increase in trauma now more than ever. But I contribute that to a lack of habitat, urban development, and those sorts of things. So I hope that answers the question. So what contributes the most? The catalyst is the cutting down of habitat, the deforestation,
Yep.
which I believe, and I read different things, is, Australia's one of the worst countries in the world at it, at cutting down its habitat. So it may present as this something different, but the reality is, and I said it earlier, everywhere I drive, I see places that are now houses that 5 years ago we were rescuing, or
Yeah.
koalas, that were sick. We're now rescuing those koalas because they've been hit by cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
I totally agree with you. The deforestation is the cause
mm,
of the issues that we have with dogs and cars and even bushfires. So, if we had huge areas of old growth forest,
mm,
the koalas wouldn't be down on the ground meeting dogs and being hit by cars. And if we had the kind of custodians looking after huge forests everywhere that we had when our First Nations people were looking after the entirety of Australia, we wouldn't have bushfire problems either. So Dave's having some more phone jiggling fun
mm.
while we answer that, and we're having the same here. The trauma year, particularly with cars, is staggering. So
I've been reading, your different groups down there, Katrina, and it's been awful, hasn't it? And I feel it's horrible to even talk about it, to be honest, because it
it's
feels so
distressing.
negative. It
Yeah,
feels so negative,
yeah,
and to talk like that, but people are being run ragged at the moment,
yeah.
and as
We're
we said
having
in our
2 car
previous,
hits a day some days,
yes, yes,
and
yes,
most of them are not, and
mm,
hardly any survive. So
no,
it's highly distressing. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
sorry, yeah, it feels bad.
I
I
think we
mean, we always
lost
want to
8
paint
on
things.
one road stretch in 2 weeks.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So it
yeah,
yeah. And the
and
only thing, we can tell people to slow down, etc., etc. But koalas are arboreal, and if they had their trees, they wouldn't be down on the roads. So,
mm, mm,
all right, another great question from Luke, and this time, and this is for both of us, but I'll have a go at answering it first. What can an ordinary person on the other side of the world do to make a real difference for koalas? Well, I can tell you that there's lots you can do. So, I you can become a patron of my channel. You can adopt wild koalas here. You can share videos from people who are really talking about koalas, like myself, like Koala Dave, like a lot of the koala organisations. Share them out and use them to get conversations going about what's important in this world to everyone you talk about or to everyone you talk to. Just, get the word out there that this is real. I am still always stunned how many Australians say to me, what? The koalas are in trouble, are they?
Mm, mm,
So, if, a huge thing that you can do is throw, a couple of dollars a week towards what someone like myself are doing, support people like Koala Dave, and talk to everybody about it. Absolutely everybody. What do you think, Dave?
I agree 100% with you, Katrina. I think one of the things that I've really started to think about in recent times, because we only have, limited funds, so if we're going to give
For sure.
money, how do we give that wisely? And so
Yes.
some of my thoughts around that, because I not only give my time or do da 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 or do education, but I also try and contribute to what I think are worthy causes.
Dave's
And
even one of my patrons. I mean,
absolutely, oh, absolutely.
it's amazing.
I think what you're doing, Katrina, and is fantastic on so many levels. So anyway, to answer the question, just from my perspective, I try and look at, like we have reactive koala intervention. So that's your kind of your rescuers, your carers, your hospitals, absolutely critical people. But I also want to look at who's doing the proactive things, who's doing the bigger picture things, who's doing the education, who's doing the, looking at sanctuaries for koalas, who's doing those things. So I try and look at both ends of the spectrum
Yeah.
and try and give my little contributions to probably right through so that, we can rescue koalas till we're blue in the face. That's not going to save them ultimately. It
No.
probably will
No.
slow them down from becoming extinct. So they are critical. But for me, I want to know, what are the bigger picture people doing? What are the researchers doing? I try and look at the big picture as well. So the micro and the macro
I
is what
agree.
I would say are all important. The conversations, of course, absolutely. Raising awareness, of course, absolutely critical. But I try and look at that whole spectrum of what's going to try and make a difference. Because, yeah, anyway, I think there's
Yep.
another question coming up
Totally.
about that later. So I like, but
Okay.
that's my answer. So I think, Koala Gardens is in a way they're doing the whole spectrum, if you like. They're
Yeah.
really looking at the big picture stuff. They're a flagship for, advocating for koalas. They're also doing, supplying the food for the koalas who are in the hospital. They're doing the rehabilitation. They're doing the whole spectrum. For me, that's why I want to be a part of what you're doing, Katrina, because I can see the value in it, so deeply.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Mm,
It takes so many people doing so many
mm,
things, that's for sure.
mm.
And we get a bonus question.
Mhm.
So Luke wants to know, do you have a particular koala that you remember most fondly, a personal story?
Oh, well, gosh.
You just get one.
Yeah, yeah. uh, you know,
It's mean, isn't it?
I think, just to answer it quickly, Sylvester for me every time was the big local alpha male who, before I became heavily involved in koalas, I'd called in and he had, conjunctivitis. And, like the carer or the rescuer organisation ran me to release Sylvester, just, a kilometre from my house.
Oh, beautiful.
And the feeling that I got releasing Sylvester up that tree is irreplaceable. So he for me, has been the catalyst in taking my journey with koalas to the next step. And I've had, I've rescued him ever, again since then and things like that. But yeah, for I'm forever grateful to Sylvester. So that's my sort of story, briefly, as a special. And I know he's still out there at the end of my tree somewhere because I can hear him at night.
Right.
So
Yeah. Nice.
he's a
Nice.
beautiful big boy,
Nice. I
and
think.
strong.
I think. It's amazing when you've got that connection and you hear them and you know who
Mm,
that is that you're hearing. That's
mm,
that's always really special. Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. Um, I think for me it's Bullet.
Oh
He,
yeah.
I I was actually tossing it up because there've been a few really special ones here, Mist and Jordan and Bullet,
Mm,
but
mm.
Bullet was just such a goofball and just such a
Unbelievable.
clown, and and he spent usually 4 to 5 days a week in the trees just outside the kitchen window. So he
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
he was just in my face all the time. So, so yes, and I think if a personal story, the day I think Grace, Phoenix and Grace, I was releasing them back on the property, and I knew Bullet and Matilda were down the back, and I raced down and I set a camera up, and came back up, and again, people who followed me for a long time will know
Mm,
that videos I'm referencing. I'll try and make sure I
mm.
link them in here. But Bullet had Matilda bowed up in the tree, and she snuck out of the tree while he was asleep. And when he
Yeah.
woke up, and his face when he woke up and realised she was gone and was looking for her, and she went down the tree in the slowest of slow motion, and he
Yeah.
goes running down the tree, and then it's all off camera, but the camera was still filming, and
Yeah.
you hear her growling and screaming and telling him off, and he comes running back and runs back up the tree, and it was just
Yeah.
the most hilarious video ever.
A, a life event.
It was, yeah, and
Mm.
it was just one of those, just put the camera down and go off, and there I am releasing another koala on the
Yeah.
property, and this
Yeah.
so that's where you were talking about. They all have those personalities. They're all so
Yeah.
different, and people still at times talk about how hilarious that particular incident was. And it even goes back to what we were talking back in the beginning about the females are pretty choosy, and
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
she
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
she told
No.
Bullet
No.
in
And
no uncertain terms.
yeah. That is so classic. So classic. Koala behavior. As soon as that female gets a chance, she's just gone, and that's when you often see them running across the ground and
Yeah,
as
yeah,
far
yeah,
as they can before they find the next tree.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
Huh.
Mm. I
Okay.
certainly love seeing the Bullet videos of all his acrobatics and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he was definitely something special, that boy. An amazing life that he had here.
Mm.
And another of these fantastic Save the Koala Month drawings by Sean. This time we have Valentine peeking around the side of one of the forest red gums that are just outside my kitchen window, and that happens to be one of Bullet's favourite old trees. That just looks so much like Valentine. It's uncanny.
Mm.
Okay, Carolyn Coburn is the next question. And this is a really good question. And so I don't know if Dave knows what Carolyn's asking about. I certainly do. And I'll put a photo
Mm.
on the screen here while I'm talking. But Carolyn says, I'm
Oh,
curious
yeah.
about the little tuft or ball of fur on Onyx's butt. And I guess it's a weird question, but there's another female in captivity that I don't know. And she says everyone calls it her mysterious tail. So is it a trick of the eye, or do koalas have tails? No, it's not a tail. It's a really good question, and I can't explain it. All I can say is I have definitely seen quite a few females that have this little, it's probably as good a word as any, tuft of fur that just looks a bit out of place, and it's perfectly normal, whatever it is, but it's not actually a tail, and I've seen it on quite a number of females over the years. Not always a lot of them on my property, but certainly females in care as well as females here. Matilda had it, Onyx had it, and it's just a funny little anomaly. I don't know if you know what we're talking about, Dave. I probably should have shown you a photo of one earlier.
I'm not going to say that I do know anything, but sometimes I guess the koalas I'm looking at are a very long way away, and things like that. So I haven't come across it myself.
For sure.
I'll leave it there.
All right. We are getting towards the end of it finally. This has been a marathon, but really, we could have, answered every question much longer than this.
Absolutely. It's good for us, isn't it?
Yeah.
We can talk underwater about koalas.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, how long have you actually got? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So another question for you, Dave, from Wild Spirit. Why do joeys seem to spend so much time on their mother's head when they are so little? I found this to be a really interesting question.
Look, I can only guess, really. But I would imagine it's probably to do with balance. And, if a joey is very young, it's just sort of gaining its confidence of being outside the pouch. And if you think about the position of a mother koala and the joey on the flat at the top of the head, it makes a lot of sense, thinking it through. It's a great question, but that would be my answer, because often the smaller joey's at the front of the mother, by the time it starts to explore and get a little bit higher, it's then on top of the head. I mean, I think, grabbing hold of the back and the strength of that for a young koala would be quite a few stages, if you like, of confidence to get to that stage. So almost the mother carries the joey underneath her when it first comes out, appears from the pouch, and then perhaps the head is probably maybe the next logical place for safety, to go. I don't know. That would be my best guess.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. So we do call them front young and then back young. But it's interesting because I don't see them on top of the head all that often. They do. Certainly, I get some cute photos where Joey comes up the back and peers over Mum's head. But
that's when they're a little bit bigger, though, Katrina, isn't it? So I'm thinking, like you, it's not something I see a lot of. But I kind of, thinking it through, that was kind of my thoughts on why they might do that if someone has seen that a few times before.
And I like the way you said it, because I think that being up there, they've got a little bit more to kind of wrap their arms around and hold on to. And I certainly have seen mums with a lot of fur missing from their face, by the time Joey's sort of finished with them. The same as their shoulders can be quite sometimes a mess. Yeah.
They really can be, can't they? And like initially you think, oh gosh, is that koala sick? And then you realise, well, maybe, they've just, the joey's just dispersed and they're just going, oh.
Yeah, I know. And their skin can be quite scratched up underneath all of that, because that little joey, Mum suddenly does something and Joey just gets in with those claws to hold on. So yeah, it's a tough life. But I like that balancing thing.
Yeah.
And Dave, this is another one for you. How many koalas live in the colony around the area where you spend your time?
Ah, I actually, it's a good question, and I know the answer to I guess the major area because they did a drone survey in March this year. So I actually visit quite a few colonies in my travels. So, but the largest one I can talk to, and they in this survey, it's a big reserve, and it's about 300 hectares, I believe, and they surveyed 97 koalas through the heat drone going over. So that's a good number of koalas. One of the factors with that number, though, is that they weren't allowed to go over churches or schools, and
Oh, interesting.
that's yeah. So something to do with the laws
Yeah,
with
yeah,
flying
yeah.
drones. And we know for a fact that actually there's quite a few koalas live in those schools and churches and public spaces.
Right.
So we would suspect there's probably 120 koalas in that area. So it's one of the, I guess, the last strongholds of koalas in my region
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
But I will know other areas that I will go to where there may be 30 koalas, or I'll go down the road and I know there's around 20 koalas. And, so some days I'll go in there and I may not see many koalas. The next week I'll go to the same place and I might see, 8 or 9 koalas.
Mm,
But
mm.
I think, if you look at my videos, you think, gosh, this guy's amazing. He's finding all these koalas. The videos don't tell the true story. Sometimes it could be an hour in between koalas, or other times I might actually see 4 in a row,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which show I think, oh, gosh, that's good. I'll be able to show people that, we've seen a few koalas today. So I think that's kind of to answer it, and
Yeah.
all of those koala situations for me are under threat. Even
Mm, mm.
that big, large population colony of koalas has what they call a paper road going through it.
Right.
And 8 years ago, it had a railway line go through it. And every time something like that happens, it has a devastating impact on the koala population. Just having people walking dogs sounds quite harmless, but once those people let those dogs off the lead, da da da, it goes on.
Yep.
But if someone's seen some of my recent videos, I was thrilled to see they were putting up some wildlife fencing around the perimeter of that reserve. And I think that will make a wonderful difference, to the amount of, koalas going out into the suburban streets. So, it's good news and bad news on that one. But that's kind of my local area. And as people know, also I can get a koala at the end of my street. Doesn't happen very often, but
Mm,
every 2 or 3 weeks there'll be a koala goes through, and I'll see the scat on the ground, and I'll be searching everywhere, for it, and sometimes I find them, and sometimes I don't. They are very elusive to find koalas. Sometimes.
yes. Actually, you saying that,
Mm.
I've got some scat.
Oh, I'll have to put my glasses on.
I know, and so I found this scat yesterday, and really it's just the size that I want to show. So
Oh,
one of these
absolutely.
scats is from Enya, and the other
Hmm.
is from her Joey.
Oh, wow,
Uh,
that is so
I've got to
cool.
put it up to
Yeah,
put
yeah.
them
No, that's
together. So
yeah,
look at that difference
yeah.
in the size between Enya and her Joey.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. What a great example. Oh, thank you, Katrina.
I
And
know.
I
I
think that
couldn't believe I found them like just kind of beside each other under their tree, and it was like, oh, pick them up, and I'll take them to the market stall tomorrow because I always have a dish of koala poo at the market to talk to people
100%.
about.
Yeah.
But to have that mum and
Mm.
Joey one separate is pretty cool.
And just sorry, Katrina,
No, no,
just it does help us understand the size of a koala by their scat on the ground too. If the koala is very
it
high,
really does.
yeah. So that is something that we are quite interested in is scat.
I know. I showed them to my daughter yesterday, and she was just like,
Mm.
"You do you, boo."
Uh, uh,
And
we
she
are
is an
weirdos.
animal person
Yeah,
like crazy. But she
yeah.
was not interested in koala scat, so that was pretty fun.
Uh, People are often quite horrified when I'm taking them
Yeah,
on a tour or something, and I pick up scat and I'll break it in half and I'll
yeah.
talk about
And I
it.
make
And,
everybody smell it, and the
yeah,
it's really fun just to watch the range of reactions that you get from the people who are just jumping in. I want to
yeah,
have a smell, to the ones who are like,
yeah.
"Whoa,
Whoa!
yeah,
Can I wash my hands?
yeah." And that's why I always have a dish of scat at the markets,
Mm,
because
mm,
yeah, it is it's really
mm.
fun to, again, it's why it's great to be able to go beyond just a photo or even a little bit of video,
Yeah, yeah,
is to actually really get that feeling of
yeah,
koalas and their environment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we're nearly at the end. I've got one last question, and this question is for me because you've just done two in a row. And
Yeah,
this
fair.
question has come in from Lynn, and Lynn asks, given the need for connectivity across fragmented habitat, what can be done to best support local communities and landholders to restore and connect habitats on private and public land? So on public land, it's a little bit harder, but on
Mm,
private land, I think that the best thing that can be done is that our government starts putting legislation into place that is enforced about removing trees,
mm,
because we talked about planting before and how long it actually takes for that to become stable habitat. So,
mm, mm,
so the logging of any kind has to stop now when it's
mm,
concerning
mm.
major trees. If these trees are in the way of what you want to get done, then you need to do it elsewhere. You just there is no more excuse to be
I
cutting
agree. I
land
agree.
back,
I agree.
and I think that an awful lot of what is going on here in Australia is being done voluntarily. There are just huge volunteer movements, and it is really time that some money was put
Mm,
behind that to enable. I'm very lucky because I've got some amazing followers
mm,
who want to throw some money into, here you need to do this project. Here's
mm.
some money to put behind it. Most people, there are, you can't multiply me by tens of thousands
No.
and think that this can all just happen. And so we're all paying taxes, and we're all,
Mm,
voting governments in. And I just think that the government needs to be getting behind local landowners
mm,
and
mm,
helping. And the government does do some things, but I think connectivity is not well understood by the government, and so they have a lot of requirements for a property to be able to access some help and some funding to do things. And I think that that's missing the big picture, that
mm.
1,000 little dots actually connect up into a picture. And if you're going to say, these are the requirements and we'll only give it to a property that can do 1,000 dots instead of 1,000 properties that can do a dot,
Mm.
then that's actually what will make the
Yeah, the
connectivity.
difference.
So,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Gosh, it's such a complex situation, is because from my point of view, we really need to have a paradigm shift with how we, see things, as how we see developments, all of that sort of thing. And, I
yes,
hear horror stories today, where developers actually factor into their budgets the fine that they will get, which is peanuts compared to what they're going to get back in the development. So for them to
Yeah.
knock down trees illegally may be a fine. I'm just a figure out of my head, but might be a
Yep.
fine of $220,000.
So
Well,
yeah, we'll just make sure we've charged for that in
it's
everything
nothing.
we've done so that
Yeah,
we can pay the
yeah,
fine. Yeah.
and it happens every day. So
Yep.
I would, you touched on it earlier too, but often where we live is where the habitat is, so that's
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
challenge that we need to overcome. But I just don't understand in a country the size of Australia that we can't find land in between habitat that's beautiful to live in as well. So, and when you look at it, down the end of my street where they're bulldozing, trees and habitat, they don't leave a tree standing nowadays. They just,
No,
people could walk from one roof of the house to the next. Well, I've got no idea what that's doing to the whole ecosystem, but
I
it's
know.
it's
Well,
not
it's
good.
destroying the entire, yeah.
Yeah.
It and look, it's the same here. One of my 30 facts videos shows some trees being destroyed and the machinery, and it's all being
Mm,
wood chipped, and that's just down not far away from here. It's a photo I took
mm,
out of the car window only the other day,
mm.
and it just and that we're rescuing koalas in that area, and they're all disoriented and
Mm.
crossing the roads more than they were because so much has been cut down, and I have no idea why. It's farmland, so they're obviously they're going to do something, but they were all primary koala food trees, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were huge. They were like as big as the
yeah,
ones outside my kitchen window,
yeah.
and now they've literally been just turned into mulch.
Mm,
And yeah, it's devastating. And so look, those people, they own the land, they have the right to do what they want to do. But as you said, if the whole of the human race doesn't make a paradigm shift,
mm, mm.
then you know how how are we going to do things? And we do actually have one last question that I do apologise, Luke. I did not mean to actually leave this out, even though
uh,
Dave and I talked about how do we answer
yeah,
this one. That I was just answering, just talking now and thinking, where is that question? And I've
yeah.
just
So have
found it on
I.
my
So have
list. And that question is, are you optimistic about the future of koalas in Australia over the next 20 years? And before we answer that one, the last of the Save the Koala September drawings from Sean. This koala, her name is Angel, and she's quite a blast from the past. She arrived here just before Christmas. Oh, I wonder if anyone watching can remember maybe 2020, but it's been quite a while. Gorgeous girl.
And I'm going to answer it through no scientific means, but I absolutely believe that we will have koalas in 20 years' time somehow. I've got no idea how we've got to do it, but we must do it. And so I hope that our groundswell becomes such that people see the importance of nature and the importance of these beautiful creatures. So I want to wish and hope that they are still around. I certainly know, Luke, sadly, that they won't be around where I live, but I hope there's enough thousand dots in a row in
Mm,
20 years'
mm,
time to make sure that they are. And by gosh, I'm happy to support that and make sure. I think we've got to have hope. Otherwise, why bother? I remember being challenged by that 5 or so years ago. Why bother even trying? And I don't think that that's acceptable, and I don't think that that's an option. I
mm,
we
mm,
we we cannot ever give up. And
for sure.
obviously I'm so passionate about the younger generation because I've only got whatever time left. I've got to pass the baton on to the younger generation. And so I absolutely want them to see koalas in the wild in 20 years.
For
I
sure.
don't think it's acceptable to say, well, we'll have a big zoo, we'll have this, we'll have that. I want people to be able to enjoy them as I have. Yeah. So it's not a scientific answer, Luke. I apologize for that. But that's what's in my heart, it's what's in my head, and that's what I'm aiming for. Katrina?
And do you know what? I want to see koalas thriving in the bush for them as well.
Yeah.
Not definitely for the next generations. I have children, grandchildren, and I'm thinking about them. But it's also for the koalas. If the last koalas left are captive koalas, that is no life. So for them, I want them to be out there and be a part of their ecosystem. And we know that if the government chooses to change how they're allowing things to be done, there is
Mm.
huge hope. So,
Yes.
and there are, millions of people voluntarily doing things to make change. So there is hope. But if the way we use resources in the world doesn't change, us as a species, then things aren't going to change. And that is really what has to change, is
I agree.
the way we're using our
Mm.
resources in the world. So that means it's up to us to
Mm.
be making a noise and taking action.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that might mean taking some of your money and trying to put some of your money into use somewhere. It might mean just becoming an advocate, and as I was saying, sharing information with people all the time, talking about things. And it might mean, even if you're on the other side of the world, that you start changing how you
Mm.
do so many things, because we focus on the koala because
Mm.
actually, I don't want to say that. I don't want to speak for you, Dave. I focus on the koala because I know that will grab people's attention and bring them into conversations they might not have come into if it weren't for something like koalas. But there are so many moving parts to the
Mm.
issues of the way we are treating the world. But I don't think you need to be a scientist to look at how much forest has been destroyed over the years, and how many species are going extinct
Mm.
to see the link between them. So yes, there is hope, and we are just working at what we're doing and watching what happens year by year in the meantime.
I agree with everything you said, Katrina. In fact, that's exactly how I feel too. And I think, to the people watching this, you make a difference. You can make a difference, and you are making a difference. We've all got to keep trying, and so don't give up hope. That's for sure. So yeah, thank you, Katrina, for what you do, but yeah, we're one little dot in thousands of good people out there doing good things.
That's exactly right. I might be just
Mm.
one dot, but
Mm.
if we didn't have all these dots, then
Mm.
there wouldn't be anybody doing anything. So yeah,
No, no,
every dot counts.
yeah, absolutely. I agree. I agree. The change starts with us.
It does. It absolutely does.
Mm.
And what an amazing thing that you have given so much time to sitting down and going through and answering these questions with me. I know that I really appreciate you
Mm.
being a part of doing this, Dave, because you are also doing some amazing work up there. You are out there all the time talking with children, doing all kinds of little educational things. I don't think most of us have actually really understand how many things you're doing out there
Mm.
as well. And it is having a huge impact on lives. and one of the best things about all of that is we never know at the time how we're making a change in a young person's life, and what we might not be around to see
Mm.
what comes of that. But we
Yeah,
can sow, I'm just like throwing seeds out there like
100. Yeah,
crazy,
yeah. Well,
because some of them are going to take and
yeah,
grow,
yeah.
and I don't even need to know which ones took and grew and where it went. If it's after I'm gone, that doesn't matter. That all that matters is that we just
Mm,
keep throwing out the seed,
mm.
and something will take. Mm.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely way. I just finish off on saying did a talk at a bush kindy the other day, and great group of kids. They hadn't seen a koala in their habitat all year. The
Wow.
next week, the next week they saw a koala. They ring me up. I go out and I say, well, actually, you haven't seen a koala. You've seen two. She's got a
Ah,
joey,
how
and
exciting.
last week they rang me again, another sighting. I went out again, another mum and a joey. Now those children rang up to me and affectionately, you Koala Dave, Koala Dave, Koala Dave, and pointed me to this. Now that's enough to make you want to go on forever, because they certainly love the outdoors. They go to bush kindy, but they're absolutely looking out now for those
Mm,
koalas,
mm,
and I'm
mm.
sure that will, go in to them being adults and to them raising their children.
Yeah,
And there's the baton being passed on this
exactly.
this old
And
fella.
there's the hope,
There's the
right?
hope.
And there is the hope, most
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So, and they say, Dave, sorry, I hope you don't mind us ringing you. And I says, I want you to ring every time you see a koala.
Absolutely.
Every time you see a koala, I
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah,
know.
yeah,
and
yeah.
and it's important that I respond, because if I don't answer the phone, or if I don't go and check on that koala, they may not ring next time. So
Exactly, exactly.
it
Oh,
keeps us
that's
busy,
great.
but
I just love that story. And you know what? I don't think um, people understand how important all of those little bits of feedback are for
mm,
us.
mm,
It's
mm.
the same for me at the markets when somebody comes. Actually, I had somebody, a new person has joined the regen team that I pay to look after the
Oh yes.
property,
Mm.
and they were here earlier this week. And at the end of the day, she came up to me and she said, "I don't know if you remember me." And I hate
Oh,
when people say that. You think, "Oh, I'm supposed
whoop.
to," And she said, "But I brought my friend from the UK and her two children here for a tour, and it was a few years ago."
Yeah,
And like when she said it, how the brain
yeah,
starts to make the
yeah,
connection. And she said every time I video conference with me, they talk about your property and the
wow,
koalas and
wow.
your books.
Mm, mm,
And I was just like, you have
mm.
no idea how much that means to me to
Yeah,
know that it has had an impact. So, yeah, and
oh,
they're
it's
they're all the
wonderful.
things that
Yeah,
you can
wonderful.
say that's hope,
Yeah, that is.
and we whilst I don't know what hope for the situation to be in 20 years, I keep going in spite of whatever
Mm,
might happen,
mm. Yeah,
because
yeah,
and that's why I often don't take a lot of notice of a lot of news and a lot of detail of what's going on out there, because I keep my focus on what I
yes,
can do
yes,
here,
yes.
on my property and with other people locally,
Yeah,
and I inspire myself that way.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, kudos to you, Katrina. Thank you so much
And to
for having
you. I
me.
mean, I think it's great to, we do some similar things, but we are a bit different as well in what we're doing. But I think it's great to be able to
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about all of those things
Mm,
and be able to share that with people.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Our common goals are the same for
they
sure.
are. They are.
Mm. Well,
Well,
thank you,
thank you,
Katrina.
Dave. And thank you to everyone who are still here
Yes.
watching this video, either
Mm,
with us as a premiere or later on if you weren't here live and have been and are watching it through afterwards. Thanks for sticking through,
mm. Thank
and
you.
thank you so much for being a part of this with me, Dave. It's been
Well done.
fantastic to share this
Definitely.
with you.
No worries. A pleasure.
And guess what? You've done it. You have just made it to the end of yet another Koala Gardens video. I hope that you enjoyed Dave and I talking through answering all those amazing questions. Would you make sure you did smash that like button and take a moment to write into the comments below? Questions answered? Now I want to know even more. Thanks so much for watching. There is loads more fantastic koala video coming your way soon. Another way that you can support what I do here at Koala Gardens is anytime you're looking to buy something, be it a clock, a phone cover, a hat, whatever it is, check out my Redbubble store and have a look at all the beautiful designs. I'm making lots more new designs at the moment. I'm sure there is something there for everyone.